It is impossible to succeed without it, but most people think they're ready, and truly they're not. Driven Mofos, welcome back to another episode of The Underestimated Entrepreneur. All right, let's talk about success and what it really takes. Are you ready for what it takes? I guess if you're listening to this podcast, the answer is probably maybe. Maybe you're trying, maybe you're having a crack, but very few people are actually going to succeed at the level that they want to. Now, you've heard me talk a lot about standards before. Normally, most people have low standards in their thoughts, in their actions, in their emotions, so that doesn't help. But really, success comes with a bunch of obstacles, a bunch of challenges, a bunch of mountains that you have to climb, and most people just don't want to do it. I was explaining only the other day on a coaching session that I had with a bunch of people, and what I said was that let's say we dump a couple of tons of leaves in a stream, and the stream flows, and it will flow, down to its lowest point. That's pretty much society, right? And most people are the leaves. You're probably one of those leaves. You're just floating down there and you don't even realize that you're floating down. Most people are floating down towards retirement. Most people are floating down towards poor health. Most people are floating down to a mental health crisis. Most people are floating towards business destruction. Most people are floating down towards, lesser valuable relationships, and they just keep floating and they think that everything's going to be okay because everything seems to be moving. They just don't realize that they're moving in the wrong direction. So what I said is that there'll come a point on the journey where you're floating down the stream, and then the next second you see a gap and you see an opening, but you're going to have to paddle like fuck. You're going to have to make the decision to go super hard, because the natural flow is going to be downhill instead of the flow being in the direction that you want to go, which is you see the opening and you go, you know what, I think this is going to be a better direction. So you start, paddling really, really hard in a different direction. When you do that, it's going to be extremely tough because momentum is pushing everything else down the stream. You're going to have to paddle up the stream and then back up to get to where you want to get to. Now, unfortunately, what happens is most of the leaves end up down the bottom of the stream, all piled together, which is society. Then there are other people who made that decision, which is a tough decision because you know that there's a lot of work involved, there's a huge amount of challenge, but you did it, right? You made the decision and you started paddling like fucking mad. And eventually you paddle along, and it's hard because you've got to go upstream, but then it calms down for a little bit. Then if you want to keep getting higher, you've got to paddle upstream again and it gets hard again. And you have to keep doing this and you don't know how long it's going to take before you get to the top of the next mountain. But you know that if you want to be there, you have to just keep paddling. You have to keep making that decision to keep going in that direction because everything is again flowing back down the stream and trying to push all those leaves back into the lowest point. Now, I guess that's an analogy that I like to use. The key thing there is if you really think about that analogy or that story, first of all, there's a decision that has to be made. And that decision that is made is that you want to break out of the average. You want to break out of flowing downstream with everybody else because that's the way that most people are going. When I look at most of my old friends, they're just doing the same shit that everyone else is doing and not realizing that they're going to end up downstream. Okay, I watched my grandparents do it where, they just lived a normal life. They did what everybody else did. And then when they retired, they had a goal and a dream of retiring and they bought a caravan and they were going to travel around Australia. And then by the time they retired, they realized that they didn't have a lot of money. So they used to go on little vacations and stuff like that, but they never went overseas. They never flew anywhere. They would hop in the car and they would drive, providing they had enough money, and they would drive somewhere, stay in a little caravan park or something like that. But that was about it. That was as good as their life ever get. Now, maybe they're happy with that, but that's sure as shit not the life that I want. Also, what happened was that the caravan that they bought when they were about to retire was in exactly the same position in their backyard when they died. And the only thing that I remember as a kid about that caravan was that me and my sister used to go and play in it. So we used it as a playground because they didn't use it. That's most people's dreams. They just sit around there waiting for one day in the future to use it. Everything keeps moving downhill. Nothing changes. Yet they keep having these dreams that everything's going to change in the future. Something will work out, but it's just wishes and hopes and dreams. Now, hopefully if you're listening to this, you're not that fucking person. I hope not. Most people are, though. Most people think they're not, but the truth is most people are, because if you're not crushing it in life already, you're probably not going to crush it unless you start making some different decisions, right? And I have this every week when I'm talking to people on my social media. They say, you know what, I want to change. I want to have this better life. I want to be inspired. I want to do things. And I say, great, well, let's fucking do something. And they go, oh yeah, but, and then all the excuses come out. Why? Because they're just floating downstream. They just don't want to make that decision to get uncomfortable. What if it doesn't work out? What if, things don't go to plan? What do other people think? All of this shit comes up right at that point. It is very, very hard. If you just keep going down the stream though, it's easy because everyone else is heading downstream. So it seems completely normal. It blows my mind that people on social media think that learning and growth from someone like myself or other people, other educators out there is a scam, yet they spend $80,000 going to university and come out and then in 3 years they realize that they've got a job that they don't want anymore in the industry that they just spent $80,000 on. It's fucking crazy. But this is most of our society. They're just floating down the stream. They're already negative 80 grand before they even start their working career and they don't even know it. Like for most people, it's dumb. But anyway, the first thing that has to happen is you've got to make a different decision. And that different decision is uncomfortable because if it was easy, you'd keep flowing down the stream. And every week I speak to people and they're like, I want to change. I want to do something different. But when it comes to making that decision, the truth is they just want to keep moving where everyone else is moving. And that is downstream because it's fucking tough to say I want to do something different. At the moment, I'm putting together another business at the moment. I don't have the money for it. I don't have the time to do it. I don't have the resources to do it. But I thought, fuck it, I'm going to do it anyway because if I don't do it, somebody else is going to do it. So why don't I do it? And when I asked that question, I was like, well, there's no real excuse. I've got to figure out how I can get the money, how I can find the money. I've got to figure out how I can get the resources. I've got to figure out how I can onboard people. And so I sit there and I map it all out and I try to figure it out. That's the game. Okay. One of my close friends, he's probably one of the biggest branding moguls in the world. The amount of companies that he's bought with no money is unbelievable. But that's why he has achieved what he's achieved because he thinks differently than everybody else. Most people think the same. They go, well, when I have the money, then I'll change. But the thing is that they never have the fucking money. Well, when I have the time, then I'll do something different. But they never have the fucking time because they don't make the time. Well, when I have a better body and more confidence, then I'll do something. But they don't ever do it. That's just everybody floating downstream. That's fucking everybody. If you say that shit to yourself, you're the same as everybody else. And you're going to hate me saying that, but it's true. Right? You're no different than anybody else. You're probably going to end up in the bottom fucking pond. Hopefully this is pissing you off enough to realize that you've got to start making some tough decisions. And those tough decisions are hard. They're going to be extremely hard because you're going to sit there and go, shit, what if it doesn't work? What if I run out of money? What if I don't have the time? What if I don't have the resources? What are my friends and family going to think? Yeah, all those questions are completely normal. But you have to know what you want. And if the standard of life isn't the standard that you're living by, then you've got to make those changes. And it is extremely uncomfortable. It's tough. Right? Today was a prime example. Today is hot and humid here in Adelaide. It's disgusting. I had a shitty sleep last night. I had a massive day yesterday, fucking huge day, right? I think I did like 17 hours or something like that. And it was just back to back. It was relentless. So anyway, I had a good sleep last night. Woke up this morning, had a headache. I've had a headache all morning. And I'm like, man, this is shit. I think I slept a bit fucked up and probably because I was sitting down too much yesterday, my neck's got a bit tight and a bit stiff. But anyway, I went out, did some work this morning, then came back, had a training session. And in my training session, it was dog shit. It was dog shit. And when I walked out into the gym, my trainer said to me, he's like, how are you feeling? And I said, oh, horrible. And he said to me, cool, it's leg day. And I was like, oh man, leg day. But I didn't want to make the excuse. I didn't want to say, can we train something else today? Can we train something a bit easier? Can I take my foot off the gas? But I didn't make that excuse because I know that that excuse is my weak point. Now, halfway through the workout, he said to me, how are you feeling? And I said, mate, at the moment, my body's running at about 30%, but my mind's running at 150% just to counterbalance it. I said, every rep that I do, my mindset right now is telling me all the reasons why I should give up, all the reasons why I should stop. I'm feeling sick. I've got a headache, one of those shitty fucking headaches where it goes into the back of your eye. And I'm just like, oh, I told him that. I was like, man, I've got this headache that goes into the back of my eyes. Like, they're horrible. I was like, oh, I know. But I said, look, we're going to get through this workout. We have to, because that's my breaking point and I don't want to break. Now I finished the workout and I'm fucked. And now I'm recording this podcast. I sat down, I ate some food and I was like, right, it's time to get back up and do the podcast. Is this the thing that I would love to be doing? And the answer is not really. Probably having a nap right now. But the truth is that that's my breaking point. You always break at your weakness. Most people are weak and they always break at their weakness. And normally it's their decision making. Their decision making is weak. They don't make the big decisions. They always make the comfortable decisions. They don't make the tough decisions. They make the easy decisions. And then they wonder why they end up down the bottom of the stream with everybody else. Right? And they don't stand out. But when I speak to most people, they're like, you know what? I want greater wealth. I want greater success. I want to achieve more. I want to have more money. You know, I get messages all the time where people go, you know, I want to buy a supercar. And I'm like, yeah, cool, bro. Good luck to you. But, you know, unless you're prepared to step up and go fucking hard, you're probably never going to get one. That's the truth. It's tough. Now, look, I'm here to support people. Like, I don't want to bring people down. But at the same time, you have to do things differently. You have to keep pushing yourself. You cannot let yourself break. You cannot be compromised, and you cannot compromise your mission, your vision, and your goals. If your goal is to build a business, then you better fucking build a business. And it is tough. There is going to come hundreds, if not thousands of times where you sit there and go, it's not the right time. I don't have the money. I don't have the resources. I don't have the staff. I don't have the energy. I don't have the right infrastructure. I don't have the right support around me. That's your breaking point. That's why you're weak, and that's where you're going to get stuck. If you're one of those people right now who need to build your fitness and health, and you're saying, well, I don't want to track my calories, you know, it's hard. You know, I don't really want to diet. I go out all the time. You know, Friday night, I go out with friends. Okay, all of these things, that's your breaking point. That's why you're not getting the results you want with your health. Right? If you're pulling all-nighters and staying up late, and then the next night you're knackered, no wonder your energy is shit. That's your breaking point. You got to grab those breaking points and tighten them up, make them solid, make them rigid. Don't let yourself break at those points. You know, I know I say this time and time and time again. Your bank account and your timeline never fits your next level of growth. It will never fit it. You don't get the money and then the time and then step up to the next level. You go to the next level. You make that commitment. You go, fuck it, I'm going for it. And you step up there and you're like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And it's tough for a little while. You get squeezed. But life, Mother Nature, God, the universe, whatever you want to call the force, right? Whatever it is, it tests you. It tests you to see, are you hungry and do you want it? Imagine a life where you just naturally got everything that you wanted. You would have no appreciation. You'd have no respect. You'd have no dignity. You'd have no self-worth. But that's how everyone thinks that they're going to live. Oh, when I get the money, then I'll do it. No, you won't. Because here's the thing. If you had the money, then you wouldn't have the growth. So you've got to have the growth. You've got to go through that tough shit in order to come out the other side to be able to handle the money. Right? If you had more time, you'd fucking waste it like everybody else. Everybody I speak to. Do you know I spoke to a dude on the dole many, many years ago? This is like, in Australia, we have something called the dole. And what it is if you are unemployed, the government pays you essentially to sit around and do whatever you got to do, right? Now, hopefully they have JobKeeper and stuff like that where you're going out and looking for a job. But the truth is that there are a lot of people who don't. They just find ways around it. Now, this guy said to me when I was a personal trainer, he came in and he said to me, I've got low confidence. I feel like shit. He would play computer games all night. Then, you know, during the day, he'd pretty much just sleep. And he had all these mental health issues, as in like he had low confidence. He had anxiety. He had what was labeled as social anxiety. He was depressed. But look at his lifestyle. The dude used to eat 2-minute noodles just while he's playing computer games all night and then just drink Red Bulls. Like he'd have a 6-pack of Red Bulls at nighttime. And then he wondered why he had anxiety and depression or feeling depressed and shit. Now I said to him, I was like, cool, how many days a week do you reckon you can come to the gym and start exercising? He's like, oh man, I don't know, I'm pretty busy. It was then that I realized that busyness is an excuse of the average. Right? Busyness is an excuse of the average. People that are driven make shit happen. People that are fucking lazy say that they're busy all the time. And if you have a look at their calendar, they're busy doing fuck all. They're busy watching television. They're busy scrolling through social media. They're busy getting caught up in other people's drama. They're busy commenting on other people's shit on social media. They're not productive. Right? What's the difference between someone who's making 100 million a year, someone who's making $1 million a year, and someone who's making 50K a year? Their ability to make good decisions and then be super productive. That's the difference. Yeah, there's some education and shit like that maybe in there as well. There's some other things you can stack onto that, but most people aren't that productive, but they're busy. You have to really reevaluate your decisions and you've got to really evaluate your life. So it's not that people don't have the time and it's not that people don't have the money. They could get the money, they could make the money, they could make the time, but the truth is that they don't because they make excuses and they're always waiting for everything to be easy before they step up. Okay, you step up and then eventually, after you go through the shit, you get the outcome that you want. Money will never come before the growth has to happen. And the growth is uncomfortable. So if you're one of those people who have just been sitting there with goals, with ambitions, with dreams, and you're wanting to change and you're wanting to have all this growth, yet at the same time, you keep putting off the decisions that you need to make because you're afraid, because you're scared, because you want things to be easy, because you're uncertain, then nothing's going to change. It's only going to get worse. You're just going to keep floating down the pond or floating down the stream. Okay, now some people make erratic decisions because, they end up at the bottom of the pond and then realize they're there, and then they start panicking and freaking out when shit gets bad. The best thing that you can do is keep making tough decisions when everything's going well. And then when things aren't going well, make tough decisions and learn how to make tough decisions. That's one thing I've learned from being around multimillionaires, billionaires, people worth hundreds of millions, things like that, is that they just keep making tough decisions. You ask them, why did you buy a failing company? And they're like, well, because I can turn it around. But why would you buy something that is failing? Why? Because they have the confidence that they can turn it around, right? People want to have a successful business. They want to buy things that are going well. They want to do things that are working well. They don't want to jump into shit. But that's why the rich get richer. That's why the people who are successful become more successful and everyone else just floats down the stream. Because they run headfirst into problems. They run headfirst into challenges. They're resourceful. They figure shit out. And most people just don't want to do that because they don't want the discomfort, right? They want everyone to say that it's going to be okay. They want 100% certainty. They want to make sure it's easy. So this week, really think about that. Really think about the decisions that you keep putting off because of your discomfort, your uncertainty, your fear, your worries. And then figure out, if you keep putting it off, where are you going to end up? It's time to step up, team. Okay, we've got to do it. Keep pushing hard, keep pushing forward. I want to make sure that this community is the most driven community on the planet, and it starts here in Australia first. Now, I know that there's plenty of people who listen overseas, but I want to make sure, especially with my events, that we're creating this environment of people that want to grow, that want to thrive, that have high standards and keep stepping up. But the way that you do that is you've got to do things that are uncomfortable. You cannot do things that are easy. You will live an easy life because you'll have more money, you'll have better resources around you eventually. But if you get into the habit of making easy decisions all the time, then life's only going to get worse. Okay, you got to make the tough decisions that are uncomfortable. Anyway, Driven Mofos, keep stepping up, keep crushing it, live with high standards. And I look forward to joining me back here once again on another episode of The Underestimated Entrepreneur. Remember, sharing is caring as well. Share it with your friends, share it with your family. Let's get this episode out there. All right, take care, everyone. Keep your standards high. Most people waste their life, and I just don't want you to be one of them.